I stood in the doorway of my own bedroom, staring at the padlock Marcus had just installed. My hands were shaking. "You'll get it back when you learn respect," he said, pocketing the key. I was 17 years old, and my stepfather had just locked me out of my own room, the room my mother decorated for me before she died. He didn't know I'd already made copies of everything that mattered. I'd been preparing for this moment for months. Before we continue, I would like to know where you're watching from in the comment section. Also hit the subscribe button and share this video, as this will help this video to travel far so others can learn also. My name is Paige, and this is the story of how I took back everything he tried to steal from me. It started the day my mother passed away. That's when Marcus stopped pretending to care. He stopped asking how I was doing. He stopped pretending we were a family. Within weeks, he became a stranger. A cold, calculating stranger who saw me as nothing more than an obstacle. But I'm my mother's daughter, and she taught me to be smarter than anyone expected. My mother, Claire, married Marcus when I was 12. Back then, he seemed kind. He'd bring me books from the library and help with my math homework. Mom was so happy. She'd been alone for years after my biological father left. Marcus made her laugh again. He made her feel safe. For a while, I believed we were a real family. But looking back now, I see the signs I missed. The way he'd watch Mom sign checks. The questions he'd ask about her savings account. The interest he showed when she mentioned her late father's estate. He wasn't building a family. He was building a plan. And when Mom got diagnosed with cancer 2 years ago, that plan kicked into motion. He convinced her to add his name to bank accounts for emergencies. He suggested she make him executor of her will to make things easier. Mom trusted him completely. She had no idea what he really was. Mom died on a Tuesday morning in April. I was holding her hand when she took her last breath. Marcus wasn't even in the room. He was outside on the phone with someone, discussing logistics. I didn't cry right away. I was too numb, too broken. The funeral happened 3 days later. I barely remember it. Just flashes, faces I didn't recognize, Marcus shaking hands like a politician, someone putting a plate of food in my hands that I never ate. The day after the funeral, everything changed. Marcus sat me down at the kitchen table and slid a folder across to me. "Your mother had debts," he said flatly. "The medical bills wiped out most of her savings. We'll need to make adjustments." I stared at him, confused. Mom had always been careful with money. "What kind of adjustments?" I asked. He leaned back in his chair. "You'll see." The first adjustment came that weekend. Marcus started boxing up Mom's things, her clothes, her books, her jewelry. I found him in her closet, stuffing her favorite sweater into a garbage bag. "What are you doing?" asked, my voice cracking. "Moving forward," he said without looking at me. "We can't live in a museum." I grabbed the sweater from his hands. "That's hers. You can't just throw it away." He snatched it back, his face hard. "She's gone, Paige. These are just things. Things we need to make space for." I wanted to scream, to fight. But I was so tired. So empty. I watched him carry bag after bag to the curb. By Monday, the house looked different. Colder. He'd removed every trace of her except for one photo on the mantel, and even that was turned backward. When I flipped it over, he snapped at me. "Leave it." 2 weeks later, Marcus called me into his office. He was sitting behind Mom's old desk, the one she'd refinished herself. He had papers spread out in front of him. "We need to talk about your future," he said. I sat down slowly, already sensing something bad was coming. "You're almost 18. You'll be an adult soon. That means you'll need to start contributing." I blinked. "Contributing?" "Rent," he said simply. "Utilities. Food. This house doesn't run itself." My stomach dropped. "But I'm still in school. I don't have a job." He shrugged. "Then get one. Or you can start looking for somewhere else to live." I felt like I'd been punched. This was my home. My mother's home. And he was treating me like a tenant. "You can't do that," I whispered. He smiled, cold and thin. "Actually, Paige, I can. This house is mine now. Everything is." That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying his words. Everything is mine now. But that didn't make sense. Mom had always told me that she'd taken care of me, that I'd be okay, no matter what. I sat up in bed, my mind racing. Mom wasn't careless. She wouldn't have left me with nothing. She wouldn't have trusted Marcus completely, not without a backup plan. Then I remembered something. A conversation we'd had a year ago, right after her diagnosis. She'd been sitting on my bed, holding my hand. "Paige, I need you to listen carefully," she'd said. "If anything happens to me, there's something hidden in the house. Something just for you. Look where we used to hide birthday presents." At the time, I thought she was just being sentimental. But now, those words felt like a lifeline. I got out of bed and tiptoed to the hallway closet, the one with the loose panel in the back. I pulled the panel away carefully, my heart pounding. Behind it was a small metal box I'd never seen before. I carried it back to my room and locked the door. My hands were shaking as I opened it. Inside was a sealed envelope with my name written in Mom's handwriting. Underneath it was a small key and a folded piece of paper. I opened the envelope first. The letter inside was short but clear. "My dearest Paige, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I'm so sorry I couldn't stay longer. But I made sure you'd be taken care of. This key opens a safety deposit box at First National Bank. Inside, you'll find documents that prove everything I'm leaving you. Don't tell Marcus. Don't trust him with this. Wait until you're 18. Then take what's yours. I love you forever." Mom. Tears streamed down my face as I read it twice. She'd known. Somehow, she'd known Marcus couldn't be trusted.
And she'd protected me.
The next few months were a nightmare. Marcus tightened his control over everything. He started monitoring my phone. He'd go through my backpack when I came home from school. He'd ask where I was going, who I was with, what time I'd be back. If I hesitated, he'd threaten to take something away, my phone, my laptop, even my bedroom door. "You're a guest here," he'd remind me constantly. "Guests follow house rules." I played along. I kept my head down, did my chores, stayed quiet. But I was counting down the days. My 18th birthday was 3 months away. I kept the key hidden in the lining of my backpack. I memorized the letter, so I could burn it if I had to. And I started researching everything I could about estates, wills, and legal rights. Marcus thought I was just a scared kid. But I was preparing for war. One night, I overheard Marcus on the phone in his office. I'd gone downstairs for water and heard him talking through the door. "The house is clear," he was saying. "No, there's nothing in her name." I made sure of it. My blood ran cold. I pressed my ear to the door. "The kid doesn't know anything. She's too young to even think about it. By the time she figures it out, it'll be too late." He laughed, a sound that made my skin crawl. "Trust me, Claire didn't leave her anything. I made sure of that." I backed away from the door, my heart racing.
He'd done something. Changed something.
But what? I went back upstairs and pulled out the letter again. Mom had written it a year before she died. That meant whatever she'd set up, she'd done it before Marcus could interfere. I had to believe that. I had to trust her. 2 weeks before my birthday, Marcus made his move. I came home from school to find garbage bags on my bed. "What's this?" I asked, already knowing the answer. "Your things," he said from the doorway. "You're 18 in 2 weeks. Time to start looking for a place." I stared at him. "You're kicking me out?" "I'm encouraging independence," he said with a fake smile. "You'll thank me later." I wanted to scream, to throw something, but I kept my voice calm.
"Fine.
But I'll need time to find a place." He crossed his arms. "You have until your birthday. After that, you're trespassing." The moment he left, I started packing. Not because I was giving up, because I was getting ready. I called my best friend, Emma, and asked if I could crash at her place for a few weeks. Then I made an appointment at First National Bank for the day after my birthday. My 18th birthday was the quietest day of my life. Marcus didn't say a word to me. No happy birthday. No cake. Nothing. I left the house early with everything I cared about packed in 2 suitcases. Emma's mom picked me up and I didn't look back. That afternoon, I walked into First National Bank with a key clutched in my hand. The woman at the desk led me to the safety deposit room. My heart was pounding as I unlocked the box. Inside were papers, lots of them. The first was a copy of my mother's will, dated 2 years before she died. It named me as sole heir to her estate. Underneath was a life insurance policy and a deed to the house, in my mother's name only, never transferred to Marcus. There were bank statements showing an account in my name with over $50,000, money from my grandfather's estate, and at the bottom a lawyer's business card with a note. He'll help you. I trust him. Mom. I sat in that cold little room and cried. Mom had protected me. She'd known Marcus would try to steal everything, so she'd hidden it all where he couldn't reach it. The will was clear. Marcus had no legal claim to anything. The house, the money, the insurance payout, it was all mine. But he'd lied to me. He'd convinced me that I had nothing, that I was helpless. I called the lawyer, Daniel Reeves, right from the bank. He agreed to meet me that afternoon. When I showed him the documents, his expression turned grim. Your stepfather never filed this will, he said. He submitted a fake one that named him as executor and primary beneficiary. Can he do that? I asked. Not legally, Daniel said. This is fraud, and we're going to prove it. For the first time in months, I felt a spark of hope. Daniel worked fast. Within a week, he'd filed a motion to freeze all of Marcus's access to my mother's estate. He submitted the real will to probate court and requested a full audit of every transaction Marcus had made since Mom's death. Marcus didn't know what was coming. I'd moved in with Emma, started working part-time at a coffee shop, and kept my head down. I didn't contact him, didn't warn him. I just waited. 2 weeks later, Marcus got served with papers at the house. Emma's mom told me later that he'd shown up at her door, red-faced and furious, demanding to know where I was. She'd calmly told him she had no idea. That night, my phone exploded with messages. You ungrateful little brat. After everything I did for you, you're going to regret this. I blocked his number and went to bed. Let him rage. The truth was coming. The court hearing was set for early June. Daniel warned me it might get ugly. He's going to claim you're manipulating the situation, that you're lying about the documents, he said. Are you ready for that? I nodded. I'm ready. The day of the hearing, I wore the dress my mother bought me for my 16th birthday. I sat in the courtroom with my hands folded, watching Marcus walk in with his own lawyer. He looked older, tired. When his eyes met mine, he glared. The judge reviewed the documents. She asked Marcus why he never filed the original will. I didn't know it existed, he claimed. Claire must have hidden it. The judge raised an eyebrow. But you filed a separate will naming yourself as primary beneficiary. Where did that document come from? Marcus stammered. His lawyer tried to redirect, but it was too late. The forgery was obvious. By the end of the hearing, the judge ruled in my favor. Everything reverted to me. Marcus tried to appeal, but his case fell apart fast. The forensic accountant Daniel hired found dozens of fraudulent transactions. Marcus had sold Mom's jewelry, her car, even furniture, all without legal authority. He'd drained joint accounts and racked up credit card debt in her name. The evidence was overwhelming. Within 2 months, Marcus was not only stripped of his claims, he was facing criminal charges.
Fraud. Forgery. Theft.
I didn't feel victorious. I just felt tired. One afternoon, Daniel called me with news. The district attorney is offering him a plea deal. He'll serve 2 years and pay restitution. What happens to the house? I asked. It's yours, Daniel said. Fully and legally. He has 30 days to vacate. I hung up the phone and sat in silence. The house I grew up in, the house my mother loved, was finally officially mine. And Marcus would never set foot in it again. The day Marcus moved out, I wasn't there. I couldn't watch. Emma's mom went with me later that week to check the house. It was a mess. He'd left garbage everywhere, broken a few things out of spite. But it was still standing. Still home. I spent the next month cleaning, repairing, repainting. I turned Marcus's office back into Mom's reading room. I hung her photos back up. I planted flowers in the garden she used to love. Slowly, the house started to feel like ours again. Mine and Mom's. Emma helped me move back in. That first night, I sat in the living room with a cup of tea and looked around. It was quiet, peaceful. For the first time in 2 years, I felt like I could breathe. Mom had saved me. Even after she was gone, she'd found a way to protect me. And I'd honored that. I'd fought back. And I'd won. Starting college that fall felt surreal. I used the money Mom left me to pay tuition, buy books, and cover rent near campus. I majored in social work. I wanted to help kids like me, kids who'd lost parents and needed someone in their corner. I still lived in the house on weekends and breaks. It became my safe place. My anchor. I'd sit in Mom's old chair and read, imagining she was still there with me. Sometimes I'd talk to her out loud, updating her on my life. I got an A on my sociology paper, I'd say. Or, Emma and I are planning a road trip this summer. It sounds silly, but it helped. One day, I received a letter in the mail. It was from Marcus, postmarked from prison. I almost threw it away, but curiosity got the better of me. I opened it carefully. Inside was a single page, handwritten. Paige, I know you won't believe me, but I'm sorry. I was wrong. I let greed destroy everything. I hope one day you can forgive me. Marcus. I read the letter 3 times, trying to figure out if it was genuine. Part of me wanted to believe he'd changed. That prison had forced him to face what he'd done. But another part of me, the part that remembered his cold smile, his threats, his lies, didn't care. Forgiveness wasn't something I owed him. It wasn't something he could demand or earn. It was something I'd give if, and when I was ready. And I wasn't ready. I folded the letter and tucked it into a drawer. Maybe someday I'd respond. Maybe I wouldn't. For now, I had my own life to build. I graduated with honors 3 years later. Mom's money had carried me through school without debt. I got a job at a nonprofit helping foster kids navigate the legal system. It was hard work, but it was meaningful. I was doing what Mom would have wanted, using what she gave me to help others. On graduation day, I wore her necklace. I wished she could have been there. But, in a way, she was. A few months after graduation, I got a call from Daniel. Marcus is up for parole, he said. They're holding a hearing next month. You have the right to submit a statement.
I didn't know what to say.
Part of me wanted to show up and tell the board exactly what he'd done to me. But another part just wanted to move on. Do I have to be there? I asked. No, Daniel said. You can submit a written statement if you prefer. I thought about it for days. Finally, I sat down and wrote it out. I didn't sugarcoat anything. I told them how he'd manipulated my mother, how he'd stolen from me, how he'd tried to erase her memory. But I also wrote that I didn't want revenge. I wanted accountability. I wanted him to understand what he'd taken from me, not just money or property, but safety.
Trust. Peace.
I sent the statement and didn't look back. Marcus was denied parole. I don't know if my statement made the difference, but I'd said what I needed to say. Life moved forward. I got promoted at work. I started dating someone I met through a friend, someone kind and patient who didn't push me to talk about my past until I was ready. I kept the house but rented it out to a family who reminded me of Mom, a single parent working hard to give their kid a good life. I used the rental income to fund scholarships for kids aging out of foster care. Mom had given me so much. It felt right to pass it forward. One afternoon, I drove past my old high school. I thought about the scared, exhausted girl I'd been at 17, locked out of her own room, counting down the days until she could escape. I wished I could go back and tell her, "You're going to be okay. You're stronger than you know. And your mom's love will carry you through." On the anniversary of Mom's death, I visited her grave. I brought flowers, her favorite, white lilies, and sat on the grass beside her headstone. "I did it, Mom," I said quietly. "I got everything back. I'm okay." The wind rustled through the trees, and for a moment, I swore I felt her presence.
Warm.
Steady.
Proud.
I told her about my job, my life, the family renting the house. I told her I'd kept every promise she'd asked of me. And I told her I missed her every single day. As I stood to leave, I noticed something tucked under a stone near her grave, a small folded note. I picked it up carefully. It was from Marcus. Claire, I'm sorry. I failed you both. I hope Paige knows I never meant to hurt her. I just lost my way. I stood there holding the note, unsure how to feel. Maybe he did regret it. Maybe prison had changed him. But it didn't change what he'd done. I didn't keep Marcus's note. I left it there, tucked back under the stone. That was between him and Mom, not me. I walked back to my car feeling lighter, freer. I'd spent so long carrying anger and fear. But standing there at her grave, I realized I didn't need to carry it anymore. Marcus had tried to control my life. He'd tried to steal my future. But he'd failed. Because my mother had been smarter, stronger. And she'd made sure I'd have everything I needed to survive. Not just money or property, but the knowledge that I was loved, that I mattered, that I was worth fighting for. And I'd proven her right. I'd fought. I'd won. And I'd done it without becoming bitter or cruel. I'd done it with the same grace and strength she'd shown me my whole life. A few years later, I was invited to speak at a conference for social workers. They wanted me to share my story, how I'd navigated the system as a teenager and used that experience to help others. I almost said no. Talking about Marcus, about losing Mom, about everything I'd been through, it still hurt. But then I thought about all the kids I'd worked with. Kids who felt invisible, powerless, alone. If my story could help even one of them, it was worth it. So I stood on that stage and told the truth. I told them about the padlock on my door, the fake will, the letter my mother left me. I told them how I'd fought back, not with anger, but with patience, evidence, and the law. When I finished, the room was silent. Then someone started clapping. Then another. Then everyone. I saw tears on faces in the crowd. Afterward, a young woman approached me. "Thank you," she whispered. I needed to hear that. That moment changed something in me. I realized my story wasn't just mine anymore. It belonged to every kid who'd been underestimated. Every kid who'd lost a parent. Every kid who'd been told they were powerless. I started speaking more often at schools, shelters, conferences. I partnered with legal aid organizations to help teenagers navigate estate issues and guardianship disputes. I even started a small fund in my mother's name to cover legal fees for kids fighting for their rights. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It wasn't even about Marcus. It was about making sure no other kid had to fight alone the way I did. And every time I helped someone, I felt my mother's presence, her strength, her love. She'd given me more than money or property. She'd given me a purpose. And I was going to spend the rest of my life honoring that gift. Today, I'm 25 years old. I still live near the house Mom left me. I still visit her grave on important days. And I still carry the keys she left me in that metal box, not because I need it anymore, but because it reminds me of her foresight, her protection, her love. Marcus is out of prison now. I heard through Daniel that he moved to another state, started over with a new job. I don't know if he ever thinks about me, if he regrets what he did. And honestly, I don't need to know. Because I've built a life that doesn't include him. A life filled with purpose, connection, and peace. My mother's legacy wasn't just what she left me in that safety deposit box. It was the lesson she taught me. That love is stronger than greed. That truth will always win. And that even when someone tries to tear your future apart, you can rebuild it. Stronger, better, more beautiful than before. I smile while I live that truth every single day.